Now, let's move on to business processes. Business processes, as we've mentioned, are something we've touched on before. Let's review the types of business processes. What's the main focus of auditing in this context? It's about testing and evaluating key controls in business processes. Isn't that so? Okay. Regarding business processes, here's their concept and definition. We won't go into detail on this, as the exact concept and definition aren't crucial. The key point here is, every business process needs an owner. Alright. We've talked about data owners before. We explained who these owners are. Mostly, they're business managers, right? Or you could call them business process owners. Okay, fine. Heads up, this might come up in the exam. Now, about auditors' internal roles. We covered this when talking about the audit framework. The board and audit committee. The audit management committee is responsible for approving the audit charter. If there's no audit committee, then it falls to the board of directors. What does the audit charter specify? It outlines the audit function's role, responsibilities, and powers. Alternatively, it defines the auditor's role, duties, and authority. Understood. This is a crucial exam point. We've covered the first 2 points already. What about the third point? In the case of an external audit. Right. Where are these duties and rights documented? In the engagement letter, of course. Moving on to the fourth point. Always maintain the audit organization's independence. That's the auditor's independence, mind you. So who does the audit department answer to? Either the board or the audit committee. That's how audit functions are managed. Independence is absolutely crucial. Adding value for top management. We've covered value creation already. Audit planning. We've talked about this before. Risk-based auditing. In an ideal scenario, we'd identify all processes. As I said, let's say we have 100 processes. We'd then assess the risk for each one. Got it. From these identified processes, we perform risk assessments to determine which areas are high risk. We identify the high risk areas, you see. We've talked about this exam point before. It's a guaranteed point score in every exam, got it? Now, when do we conduct an audit? There are 4 scenarios, 1, 2, 3, 4. You follow. Let's just go over it quickly. This might be one of those rare exam topics that only comes up once in a blue moon. For instance, when should we audit? When a risky situation arises. When tech or business processes change. We audit to verify effective controls in our processes. Got it. Alright. Steps in audit planning. Grasp the mission goals. Get to know the auditor's setup, you know? These 2 points don't pop up much in exams. The red highlighted sections will be on the exam. Start by getting to know the subject. Your job is to evaluate people. First, familiarize yourself with them. Got it. Get to know the person you're assessing. It's just like dating someone new. See what I mean? To find the right person, you got to get to know them first. That's the idea, you see. Remember, your role is to evaluate others. Get to know the people you're working with. Understand their perspectives and backgrounds. You see what I mean? So, get familiar with their objectives and mission statement. Got it. Next, learn about any changes in the client's business landscape. Alright. So, these are your first steps. After that, review the previous audit work papers. What exactly are these work papers? They're the original documentation from the previous audit. Isn't that so? What's the next step? Nail down the details. Check the company guidelines. Is this what we're talking about? Remember, we start with the overview. Next, assess risks and plan the audit. A risk-based audit plan, correct? We've covered this already. Risk-based audit plan. Once the risk assessment is done, what's next? Defining the audit scope. You can bet this will be on the exam. Start with a risk assessment. Once that's done, you figure out what areas to audit. That's when it all clicks. In plain English, the audit scope. It's just another way of saying high-risk areas. I'm pretty sure I always explain this crystal clear. But when it comes to actually solving problems, boom, it's gone from their minds. They forget everything I've taught them. This reminds me of my college days. Our teacher would say, you know, I've already covered this problem, remember? Didn't I? But the students would say, no, you didn't. They had no memory of it whatsoever. The teacher would then clutch his chest dramatically, gasping, oh, the pain. My poor heart. It's just like those scenes from my college days. So, before you start solving problems or taking exams, if you're struggling with the basics, I recommend rewatching the lecture videos a few times. Then tackle the exercises. Also, what's that other thing I always ask you to do? Take notes, right? If you've got notes, review them thoroughly before starting the exercises. This approach will boost your efficiency tremendously. Alright. The exam will start with risk assessment, followed by determining the audit scope. Got it. Heads up, everyone. Next up, we'll discuss audit methodologies. Lastly, we'll look at how to allocate personnel for the audit. This topic has come up in exams before, by the way. So, once we wrapped up the audit plan, what's our next step? There's another option to consider. It's allocating resources, right? How laws and regulations affect our audit? We've touched on this before. Auditing covers 4 main areas, checks and tasks, on things like external laws and internal policies. So we start with legal requirements. This applies to all organizations, big or small. Compliance comes first. Right. Okay. Now, about roles and compliance in auditing. Auditors must check if all legal aspects are being followed. Right. Some key areas are, wow, things like copyright, privacy, and so on and so forth. Or maybe you've got contracts with outside parties. These contracts are also under legal protection, you know. Therefore, you should take a look at the contract. Now, check if anything in the execution process violates or conflicts with legal regulations. Business processes and controls. Now, about business processes. As we discussed earlier, the business process manager has full responsibility for the process. Secondly, in these processes, what do we need to ensure? Make sure to keep duties separate, okay? Separation of duties, remember that. We've already talked about separating duties, right? Like, you can't have one person with both access and review rights, got it? CISA candidates must know the systems in these business apps, risks, and controls. What does it mean if you come across this section? These business processes might show up on the exam, so heads up. First up in business processes, e-commerce. China's a powerhouse when it comes to e-commerce. I bet you're all pretty familiar with this. And what stands out the most? You know, B2C giants like JD.com and Taobao. These are all B2C platforms, you know. What about C2C platforms? C2C, well, it's not quite there yet. Take C2C platforms, for instance. They're crawling with scammers, you know. Yeah, C2C. Okay. And when it comes to China in this sector, sometimes you're just stuck, you know. Many of these platforms don't even have desktop versions. So all these similar platforms and stuff, I pretty much avoid them altogether. Why is there no desktop version? You're forced to use the mobile app. As soon as you install the app, your privacy is completely compromised. They have unlimited access to everything. I had the same number for over 20 years. You know, it started with 139. It was a great number, actually. But guess why I get it up? I get at least 30 calls a day. 30 spam calls, every single day. Nuisance calls, scam and threatening calls. Oh man, I've had enough. So I switched numbers. But with the new number, I still get at least 10 calls daily. So I had to switch from iPhone to Android. iPhones lack call blocking features, or their blockers are ineffective. Why can't Apple? When it comes to iPhones, They restrict access to certain low-level permissions. Android phones, however, readily grant these permissions. So we can't say that Android phones are entirely inferior. In terms of spam call blocking, Android outperforms iPhones. So in this regard, you get fewer spam calls, but they're usually just singling calls. You know, those pesky telemarketing calls. It's simply overwhelming. E-commerce architecture. Two-tier and three-tier architectures. Two-tier architecture, client and server. In this client-server setup, what's the downside? Maintenance is a hassle. Plus, you got all sorts of clients. Windows, Unix, you know, and so on and so forth. Client-side infections are a real pain. So, that person's services would be unavailable. Isn't that so? Alright, let's talk about the three-tier architecture. It's the most widely used architecture. First, we have the presentation layer, which interfaces with users. Like our website, for instance. You follow. Second, the application layer. And third, the data layer. This is pretty much the standard nowadays. That's the three-tier architecture for you. Just to give you a quick rundown, you know? Remember when we had that exam question about three-tier architecture? Let's talk about load balancing. Load balancing. BL. NC. In a three-tier setup, where does network load balancing fit? Load balancing goes up front. It's a no-brainer, really. So, load balancing at the front end, externally. What's that mean exactly? Let's sketch this out. Okay, I've dealt with this before. You won't find this in many books, you know. Users from Beijing. Users from Shanghai. Users from Shenzhen. You know, Inner Mongolia. I'm not sure about its abbreviation though. Users from Inner Mongolia. Right. What else do we have? Let's consider Xinjiang, our northwesternmost region. How about we add one for Tibet? Users from Tibet, right? Beijing's population is just 20 million. Over 20 million. Shanghai's population, over 20 million. And Shenzhen, pretty much the same. Okay, so this part here is load balancing, you see? This is the main load balancing system. Let me give you an example. Load balancing. Okay. What comes next in our setup? Our infrastructure and equipment. Now, if you look here, you'll see various access devices. This is for load balancing. Let's consider Tibet as an example. When accessing a service there, the number of users, right? During peak hours. Let's say there are only 5,000 people. How many for Beijing? Say 5 million. For Shanghai, right? 8 million. And Shenzhen? Maybe 10 million. How many in Inner Mongolia? 20,000. Okay. Look, some areas have higher numbers. Some areas are underserved. So, what if this area only has 5,000 users? Let's say, for argument's sake, you only have 5,000 users here. Wouldn't that be a waste of resources? Let's redistribute some of the load. We'll take the excess traffic and move 2 million users to this area. This is just a hypothetical scenario, mind you. Don't worry about the details, just grasp the concept of load balancing. Got it. That still leaves us with 8 million users elsewhere. 8 million is still a lot. Let's give this one 2 million more. So what does that leave us with? 6 million. Give this one 2 million, so it becomes 6 million too. This, in essence, is load balancing. Isn't that right? So what's the core idea behind load balancing? It's about preventing resource overload, avoiding traffic jams at specific nodes, and stopping servers from crashing due to overload. So, we use load balancing to solve these issues, right? If one way is busy, we use another. Got it. We access through another resource. That's load balancing. Load balancing happens up front. It's applied closest to users, you see. You gotta get this concept. Now, in e-commerce, confidentiality, you shop online, right? You know what I mean. Never, ever steal credit card info. Let's look at an example. Oh man. Even as a security-conscious person, I still get blindsided sometimes. So, get this. I suddenly got hit with a $119 charge on my credit card. I was like, what's this charge? I thought, what the hell is this? Had my card been compromised? So I called the bank and said, first, freeze my card. I think it's been compromised. I need a new one ASAP. I've got expenses to cover. So I called them back one more time. I asked, can you tell me the name of the company? They gave me some name I didn't recognize. It was something like, then it hit me. I'd signed up for their service 2 years ago. It was a service fee, wasn't it? How much was it again? 100 yuan. Or maybe 110, 120. Something like that. The cost for 2 years. And then, the merchant asks for credit card payment. During the payment process, I forgot. I didn't pay attention. They went ahead and linked my credit card. Once the subscription expired, they immediately, the auto-renewal thing. Wow, I totally missed that. They just went ahead and auto-renewed it on you. It wasn't until I got the bill that I realized, oh man, they'd auto-renewed my subscription. This is just how they operate these days, It's so frustrating, honestly. But since I'd already paid for it, I figured I'd try to use it over the next 2 years. It worked once or twice at the beginning. But after that, here in China, wow, this particular product is absolutely unusable. So, folks, you really need to watch out. Most of this stuff, foreigners rave about how amazing it is and all that. But in China, practically useless, all of it. You end up having to shell out money. First off, it costs an arm and a leg. And secondly, well, it's called hard cash down the drain. We're talking a straight-up loss of 120 bucks, just like that. That's over 800 yuan, give or take, just vanishing into thin air. So, when you're thinking of whipping out your credit card on foreign websites, make sure to check for any auto-renewal subscriptions. If you find one, cancel it right away. I canceled, but they just wouldn't stop emailing me. Oh, man. They're like, why'd you cancel? They say if you cancel and the service expires, you won't be able to use it anymore. It'll affect your access. And don't even get me started on their customer service. It's awful. These foreign companies are just so untrustworthy, I swear. Seriously, they're so unreliable. Let me stress this again about credit cards. What's the golden rule of credit card safety? Never, ever share your card number or security code. Don't save them online or tell anyone. If someone gets this info, they basically have your credit card in their hands. All they need is the info on the front of your card, plus the 3-digit code on the back. For international purchases, there are 0 safeguards in place. When you buy something with your card, you don't even need a PIN, got it? So folks, you've got to be super careful about this. Keeping your card info secret is crucial, okay? We're out of options now. Have you noticed when buying materials from foreign websites or ordering books online, they don't accept Alipay or similar Chinese payment methods? E-commerce risks are the most critical issue. It's a common exam topic, isn't it? They introduce various online marketplaces with high standards for customer service. Customers expect top-notch online services. They prioritize user-friendly interfaces and zero tolerance for service outages. So, what's on the auditing checklist for e-commerce? Well, firewalls for one. Then there's security protocols, and so on. But above all, we need to ensure data transmission security. We've covered all this in chapters 4 and 5, remember? Okay, moving on to the second point. Just a sec. Let me tweak this diagram real quick. The second business process is EDI, or Electronic Data Interchange. Classes 26 and 27 often get tested on this. What's EDI? Let's check out this diagram here. See this bell symbol? That's for procurement. So, what did he place? An order. Then sent it to the supplier. The supplier received it, entered it into their system, created an invoice, and mailed it to Bell. Bell then entered it into their system. That's without electronic data interchange. So many steps. But with EDI, well, I just need to send my order to the EDI system. Got it. After that, you create an invoice based on my order and send it to the recipient. And we're done. That. It's an exchange between two organizations' systems, automatically sharing structured data for business purposes. This is known as EDI, right? It replaces paper-based exchanges. It minimizes errors in data storage and transfer. This point often comes up in exams. You see, isn't this what we call a paperless office? Secondly, doesn't this reduce data storage? There's no need for data transfers anymore. You can send it directly. Just send it straight away. But in exams, they might ask about the benefits of EDI. What's it good for? That's the gist of it. But there's one issue with EDI here. What happens if it goes down one day? If it does, the operations between A and B would come to a halt. So we need to think about preventing single points of failure here, right? EDI risks, like transaction approval issues, or losing business connections. Losing connections means it's down, you know? What about transaction authorization? If it's not certified, it can't input data like in an EDI system. Without proper certification, it doesn't have access to input data into the EDI system. So, if you need to input data, we covered in Chapter 3, Data Input and Source Control, require authorization. It must also be accurate. These two factors present the biggest risks in EDI. The first is proper authorization, and the second is business relationship management. Got it, right? We've covered similar topics before. The third business tool we'll discuss is email. Email is something we all know well. But what's the main risk when it comes to email? Alright, let's start with the first issue. It's about sensitive information, you know? If it gets out, we've got a leak on our hands. Right. So emails need encryption, obviously. The second issue we need to tackle is viruses. So what's the solution? Keep your antivirus updated and avoid clicking suspicious links. Next up, preventing phishing emails. That's where awareness comes in. We need education and training to raise awareness. PS systems, you know, those payment terminals. Card terminal. Wow. This old school card reader. I haven't seen one of these in nearly a decade. It's been ages. Anyway, what kind of data does a card terminal encrypt? Sensitive information like the card's verification code, the CVV number. You know, that thing we talked about earlier. The security code and all that stuff. This sensitive information should never be stored. It's stored on the PS terminal. What's the technology used here? Tokenization. Right. Tokens are the solution. In other words, during a credit card transaction, there are two databases involved. One is for tokens, and the other is for the actual data, you see? That's just a quick rundown, okay? You get it, right? So, when you're communicating with a merchant, you first provide a token. Got that? Now, regarding this token, it's used to fetch info from the real database. If the data is retrieved successfully, okay, then you send the token to the other party. The transaction takes place. Once it's done, the real data is entered into the database. Then a token is issued to this end, which is then sent back. In other words, during the transaction process, your actual credit card details. You're the customer. And this is the merchant, right? Right. Your sensitive card information won't be obtained by the merchant. This is what's called tokenization in PCI DSS. Data tokenization, you see. Let's take a quick look at this. So, you see, these concepts are pretty straightforward for everyone. Never store it on the PS terminal. You see, it's got two databases. It's processed using tokenization. Online banking. These days, we're all about mobile banking. Now, with online banking, let's consider this. The key concerns are strategy, operations, and reputation. This doesn't apply overseas. You might be wondering what that means. Alright. Recently, Credit Suisse and Silicon Valley Bank suddenly went bankrupt. What happens to customers' money in such cases? So Switzerland decided Credit Suisse was too big to fail. They had the central bank arrange a forced acquisition by another bank. The point is, don't assume banks are risk-free. Here's another tip. If you're planning to save money, if you're planning to make a large deposit, remember to avoid smaller banks. I can't stress this enough. Steer clear of small banks. Don't fall for their attractive interest rates. Alright, to sum it up, this is my personal take on it. State-owned banks are generally much safer. They're the backbone of the national economy, acting as a crucial pillar of support. Their stability is non-negotiable. Online banking has various security measures, such as robust identity verification processes. When it comes to a mobile banking app, you can see that each time you use it, there's fingerprint or facial recognition, plus passwords and security tokens. What do we call this again? It's called a verification code, isn't it? They send you a verification code, you know? Basically, it's all about multi-factor authentication. This ensures that electronic banking transactions are undeniable and traceable. It's your face being scanned, not, and it's your transaction password you're entering. You might claim it wasn't you, not, but the bank will have proof. Don't you think? So this method ensures you can't deny your actions. Let me give you one more piece of advice. What's this advice? If you're planning to go overseas, I'm serious, you really should listen to this. For vacation or work, pay close attention to what's on your phone. Let's say you have $1 million in some app. Make sure you uninstall that app, got it? I can't stress this enough, uninstall it. Don't even think about installing that app. So what's the worst that could happen? You could get kidnapped. They find out you have money in this app and make you hand over every penny. So, what apps should you keep on your phone? Only the ones you need for work or travel. Let's say you have about $7,000 in one of your apps. That should be plenty, right? When traveling abroad, avoid keeping large sums for business or pleasure on your phone. Constantly having that much money accessible on your device is incredibly risky. These days, criminals are actively targeting Chinese travelers. Your mobile payment systems are so convenient that they've become a prime target for scammers. Here's another tip. Create a personal safety guideline. And what should this guideline be? When you're in a foreign country, look, about your total transfer amount. You need to set a limit. Don't just set a daily limit of 50,000. Some people might get their accounts locked, and it could be for a day or longer, you know. If you have $1 million and withdraw 50,000 daily, it'll be gone in just 20 days. Set a total limit, and once you hit it, you can't withdraw anymore. And so on. Bottom line, folks, be careful. These are real risks. Let's talk about electronic funds transfer. Let's examine electronic funds transfer. Overseas, for instance, people used to use checks. But here in China, most of us never really dealt with checks. We jumped straight to, well, electronic funds transfer, you know? Now, electronic funds transfer is moving money electronically between banks. That's what we mean by FD. Pretty straightforward, right? It's pretty straightforward. In electronic fund transfers, wow, you need to verify identity. All the data, as it's transferred between financial institutions, has to be encrypted, you know? And in exams, by the way, they've tested this obscure topic before. It's about electronic fund transfers in specialized networks. Auditors focus on these data switches, right? Because they connect everything, don't they? That's why auditors scrutinize data switches. They also review contracts and third-party audits related to data switch operations. Since all data passes through the switch, if its physical or logical security is compromised, it poses a severe security risk. Now, let's talk about ATM services. These are more straightforward. With ATMs, physical security is the top priority. You might have heard the story of terrorists blowing up an ATM with explosives and making off with the cash. These are all true stories that actually occurred in our country. That's why physical security is absolutely critical. Artificial intelligence and expert systems, or AI for short. I'm not sure if you've tried this GPT thing, but let me tell you, it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's incredibly powerful, you know? Once you fine-tuned it, it's like having a personal assistant. The efficiency is absolutely incredible. It can acquire knowledge, share insights and experiences, boost productivity, and automate processes. That's the power of AI, right? Now, regarding auditors' role in expert systems, they need to understand the system's purpose. You see, assess its impact on business processes, and handle potential system issues. You see, how might it affect our operations? Expert system. Using other auditors and experts. Remember, we've covered this topic before. Check the contract or business agreement. Some rules in the engagement letter. Got it. Next, external auditor independence, which is absolutely crucial. Independence is paramount. Next up, professional qualifications. Okay. This covers the same points as before. Independence, objectivity, audit objectives in the engagement letter, scope and methods. External audits are also covered in exams. You might be asked, where are these scope terms defined? In the engagement letter.